Hi everyone, welcome back to GYaff with G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H. I'm Sherida.
And I'm Afia.
Thank you guys so much for joining us again on this second episode. We really appreciate all of you guys who listened to our last episode. We hope you're having a great summer and enjoyed our episode about having summers in Guyana and just summer in general. We got a lot of great listeners and we're so grateful for you guys. If you are new here and this is your first episode with us, GYaff with G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H. is a G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H. Association podcast, and it is basically the telephone line between Guyanese in the U.S. and all over the world and Guyanese people located in Guyana. We wanted to ensure that our global community of Guyanese people are able to stay connected and continue to have conversations with everyone. So that's the point of this call and podcast.
Yeah, so we mentioned in our last episode that we were going to be going on a trip to Guyana for a wedding, and we're still here.
Yeah, so please excuse any chickens, fowl cocks, parrots, anything that you hear in the background. We are in the homeland, so... Yeah.
And we're currently on the veranda, so excuse any, strong breeze or anything like that.
Yes, we take in breeze.
Yeah. We are fresh in the homeland. We're in West Coast Berbice right now. So, like we said, we went for a wedding. The wedding was...
Yesterday.
It was yesterday. It was definitely something, and we'll tell you all about it in this episode. But the wedding was what inspired this episode about relationships and marriage in the Guyanese culture.
Yeah, so a brief overview of marriage in Guyanese culture. Historically, marriage has been really important to Guyanese people, especially the elders. The youth are definitely encouraged to get married in our culture, kind of as soon as possible in certain families. And we have noticed that with the trends in relationships these days, that it seems like people are having trouble becoming partnered. And that is impacting the amount of weddings that we have been attending. So we'll just be sharing some details about that with you guys as well. But before we get started, we have a few shout outs.
Yeah, so first and foremost, shout out to all the people that we met and we gaffed with at Guyana Day in July. Can you tell me your name?
Corey Edwards.
Okay. All right, are you from Guyana?
No, my whole family is.
What part?
Berbice.
Oh, that's right, Berbice in the house. Can you tell me your name?
David Warden.
Okay, well, what do you like most about Guyana?
The freedom! Food!
That's right.
Food, everything.
It was really nice to meet you guys. The New Jersey tri-state area Guyanese, they really showed out for this one. Shout out to Aaliyah, Rashad, today.
That's nice.
Yeah, all of y'all were wonderful. Hope you're doing well and hope you're listening.
Yeah, we hope you're listening. And also another shout out to all of our listeners in Germany and all over the world, but specifically Germany we wanted to call out because we keep seeing that there's an intense population of people in Germany listening to this podcast. And we're not sure if you're Guyanese or Caribbean or just interested in the culture, but either way, we would love to have you, all of you in general, but curious about these German people on the podcast. Our next episode coming out in September will be discussing geography. So we'd be really excited to get more input and more feedback from you guys all over the world. European people, South Americans, Guyanese. If you're anywhere listening to this, please be sure to contact us at G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H. GY. We would love to include you in this next episode about geography.
Yeah, please do, because we know that there is a large Caribbean population in Europe. And whether you're Guyanese or Caribbean or just here to listen, we want to hear from you. So please reach out.
Definitely. So now let's get into it. Historically, marriage has had importance because it meant a lot of different things to a lot of different societies and culture throughout, civilization, human history. In some cases, the purpose of marriage was for social stability and family integration, combining and linking family units. Other instances where marriage was a priority is just for procreation and continuation of lineage, because obviously without two people, you can't make a child. Other purposes for marriage in history have been for economic reasons. People with a lot of property, a lot of wealth would want to, combine with another family who has a lot of property and wealth and, of course, expand their empire or increase the amount of resources that the family has. And of course, just thinking of other ways that the purpose of marriage was for alliances, preserving cultural and religious traditions. That's something that I know the Guyanese people really value. And yeah, stuff like that. So we're going to be talking about marriage more specifically in the Guyanese culture. But before we get into that, we are going to just share a few stories of wedding experiences that we've had throughout the years.
All right. So one of my first weddings that I went to, Guyanese wedding, it was for my Auntie Paula. It was in the States, but, still very much a Guyanese wedding. And although I was very young, I do remember being the flower girl, and the wedding reception I remember the most because it was just so much food that was there.
Yeah.
All the different Guyanese cuisines you can imagine, it was there. And I just remember bragging to all of the guests, like my aunt made all this food. My other aunt, she's a chef and a baker. I remember telling them, she made cakes, she made all the food here, and I was just bragging because I was proud. It was really
Love
good
that.
food. It was high energy. It was good.
Yeah, I remember that wedding. I'm a little bit older than Afia. And it was fire. Like, I just loved everyone coming together to celebrate this marriage. My grandparents were alive at the time, so they flew in from Guyana to go attend. There were some funny moments because Guyanese people just are hilarious. Everyone just had a blast, and all this food everywhere. What I will say though, what was great is that what Afia mentioned, like all the abundance of food, and I think it was a great thing that the venue allowed for us to bring in outside food. I know that some venues don't allow you to bring in your own food, but because of that, it was the food that our entire family loves, and that our entire family has grown up eating. So that was really a blast.
Yeah, and cook up rice, chow mein, curry chicken and roti.
Pastries everywhere.
Yes, pastries everywhere, cheese straw, pine tart, patty, all of that stuff was there. All that you can imagine, Guyanese cuisine, it was there.
Perfect, yeah.
So the other wedding that I remember going to, it was in Guyana, it was in Georgetown. It was for my other aunt. And I remember my sister and I, we were a part of the wedding court, so we were bridesmaids. We had on these cute red dresses.
I felt like a salsa dancer.
Yeah. Y'all know that salsa dancing emoji.
That's exactly how we looked.
That's exactly how
we
looked.
But brown.
Yeah, but exactly. But we looked good. We looked good. It was fun. It was definitely fun. We met so many of our extended family members. The food was good. The music was great. And it was just vibes all night.
It was. And definitely the other best part about it was that there were some people that we hadn't seen in years. From when we were growing up. We spent a lot of time in Linden as kids, and then we came away to West Coast Berbice, and we hadn't seen some of our friends in like 10 years at that point. And so it was incredible just to see people so grown up and just, give big hugs, and, that was so enjoyable. Yeah. That reminds me of another wedding that we did attend in Guyana. Maybe a few years before that one. It actually did take place in Linden, and it was for our cousin, and he was getting married. He actually lived in Trinidad, but he was getting married to a woman who was also Guyanese. And there was a Kwe-Kwe for it, and that was probably one of the first Kwe-Kwes I attended. Afia will get into what a Kwe-Kwe is later, but he had a huge party essentially, just mixing and mingling with the new family that was being created. And that was a blast. But the wedding that we just most recently attended was the one that happened yesterday. It was for our uncle. We're in Guyana for it. And it was so crazy to see how everyone, all of their friends from the past and from recent, from near and from far, came to celebrate their marriage.
From all parts of the world who came out to this wedding, and it was really nice to see them come out. We have some relatives from Amsterdam, France, different parts of Europe.
Yeah, our relative that came from Europe was telling us that it took her 3 days to get to Ghana because there's no direct flight from France. So she had to fly from France to Amsterdam to the UK, something crazy like that. And it took them about 2 or 3 days just to get here. So Guyanese people really will show up for a wedding.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. The music was good. The theme of the wedding was purple and yellow, and everything just looked really cute.
Yeah, I definitely have to give props to the decorating game here in Guyana. I have never seen such a modern wedding before, and maybe it's because I haven't been to a wedding in Guyana in almost 10 years because our other aunt's wedding that happened in Georgetown was in 2014. But it is incredible to see how the decorations are so modern. So that was really lovely to see.
Yeah.
And you know what? In the fact that we haven't been to a wedding since 2014, it might really speak to the fact that, weddings just aren't happening as much anymore.
That's true, unfortunately. Yeah, and it seems like the amount of weddings that have been taking place have been decreasing over the years. And, that's partly because of how society is, dating culture, and things like that. And like our friends have been giving us more complaints than positive things, unfortunately. Like things that we've been hearing is not too many solid men or women, and the people who are more vocal are a lot more troublesome, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think what Afia means by vocal is the people who are shooting their shots sometimes they just aren't the best option or best person to find yourself partnered to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not always the case. There are some great people who are just vocal and outgoing and want to, be partnered, but
Yeah, honestly, who knows? And shout out to Shade. I think she said if you wanna lose weight, date a Guyanese man.
that's
So,
that's hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it just seems like everyone wants to be with someone, but it's just not happening. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, and we want to explore that. I think there are potentially many reasons why that's happening. I know that, social media and the economy right now could be reasons as to why the dating scene is not so great. What do you think about that, Afia? About like, what do you think about society right now and the economy and how that might impact people's relationships and marriage in Guyana and the broader community?
Yeah. So I think as social media starts to become more and more prominent in our lives, it's starting to decrease the amount of interaction in the matches that are made in person. There's increase in the usage of dating apps. So it's a lot of physicalities that we're, more drawn to these days because that's just how it is. Because the way that, Instagram and, other social medias work is that we see the person's face and how they look and how they dress, and we put on our best selves for social media and these dating apps. So we're not really seeing these people in person, interacting with them normally. We're getting the well-kept version, and that's
highlight reel.
Yeah, we're seeing the highlight reel, and that's how we make our impression. Rather than meeting someone naturally or like meeting them in person for the first time and things like that. So the way that the dating scene has been changing is mostly because of how social media is impacting our lives, and it's causing us to unfortunately have unrealistic expectations for a partner. So things are starting to become more materialistic and
superficial for
yeah,
sure.
Definitely superficial, and having expectations like our partners would be able to provide lavish gifts and trips for us because that's what we see on social media, and we see, these people are doing it. Why can't we have this? Especially when you're young, it might not be realistic, but people don't want to get into relationships like that anymore because they're expecting that is going to be a lot of pressure because of how social media has been, portraying relationships.
I would totally agree with you, Afia, because I had read a statistic a couple years ago, and it had said that because of social media, men, it was specific to men, are seeing dozens, if not hundreds of times more women in their lifetimes now than they would have previously just due to social media. Because you can go onto any social media app or dating app and then see people who are hundreds of miles away from you and interact with them romantically in a way that you wouldn't have been able to before. And because we're able to follow people and their lives, it introduces a level of competition that didn't really exist prior to social media, because you don't have to compete with the girl that's in Japan because you don't know what the girl in Japan looks like or how her dating style is or what she's doing to get a partner. Mm-hmm. You don't have to compete with the guy in Brazil because, you don't know what he looks like and what his lifestyle is. You don't know what his job is because you can't see him. But because competition and so many other dating options are so much more accessible now, it is impacting the way people are approaching dating and relationships nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. And you're having more and more people from different places come into like Guyana, and in addition to that, just things are changing. Like obviously, let me stop. Stupid. Anyways,
little Venezuela.
Yeah. So in addition to that, the population is changing. Mm-hmm. You have different people migrating from different areas, especially into Guyana now, and the dating pool is changing. Just to say that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just people's way of thinking, their way of life, and everything that impacts how they go about dating. So the influence of these different changes, it's there. It's there in our faces.
It's true, because think about it. Like our culture as Guyanese people, as I mentioned before, historically we have really valued marriage. If you think about the other cultures who are coming in, Guyana is neighboring 3 other countries. How do they view marriage? Like, is marriage important to them? Are they interested in mixing cultures, mixing Guyanese culture with Brazilian culture, with Surinamese culture, with Venezuelan culture? Or they might have different opinions about marriage and dating. Do they marry more for love or date more for love, or do they marry for resources? Are they marrying because they want to, do the things that I had mentioned before, which is, expand their potential family empire with wealth? Are they trying to acquire something? Is it for social or societal benefit? There's so many different reasons. And, so with migration and globalization, that is where the dynamic of relationships and marriage changes. I think that both men and women are facing these challenges equally, I would say. Maybe more so economic as it relates to men. They're definitely facing different economic requirements than women are.
I'm sure the older generation has faced similar pressures as well. They have their own things, and our parents have, reflected that in their relationship and have influenced us in ways as well.
Yeah, so some of the traditional beliefs and values that surrounded relationships and marriage that we were exposed to as children was that, family is highly important. In Guyanese culture, it's very common for, a marriage to be seen as not just a union of the two individuals, but as a coming together of two families. And so, different to other societies and different to other cultures, you have to consider who the family is before you accept the marriage proposal, before the family accepts the marriage proposal and the potential partner. And that plays a significant role in the success of a marriage. We have noticed that, in some of the marriages where in-laws or the other family isn't in favor of the other family, that the marriage it struggles. Another thing that has been previously traditional in certain communities in Guyana was arranged marriages. That's particularly among the Indo-Guyanese population. But arranged marriages were quite common in the past, and some families still practice this, but it has become less practiced in recent years. But some families still prefer arranged marriages, where it literally is that the parents or elders arrange a suitor for their relative.
Yeah, and usually the elders are looking for a suitor that's financially stable, educated, they come from a good family, and what can they add on to the family? What can they do?
Agreed. And, like any culture, Guyanese culture is continually evolving. And we're seeing that because now the things that were previously critical to determine or accept a partner are changing. Some families are not requiring that your partner be the same religion or same race or same educational or financial background. Things are changing. And as time goes on, some of these beliefs may adapt to reflect the societies and cultures and beliefs of the other people who are becoming to settle in Guyana. It's a developing nation and a lot of people are finding interest here. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future, our cultural opinions and stance on marriage being super important and matching families and mixing families evolves to reflect the migration that is happening in Guyana. So I'm sure that these people who are moving to Guyana will bring their own opinions and marital practices.
And and like we've received from our parents, we've gotten tips and advice and observed, just how relationships and marriage can be in a Guyanese context.
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying, don't bring a bum home. And like we were mentioning before, like it's been a standard not to, be with someone who isn't stable. And from what I've been taught is, finding someone who has good intentions and financially stable or educated. And I took all of that into consideration in my life. And it's very valid advice.
Yeah. For me, I think that the oversight and the opinions of my parents really helped protect me from interacting with people who may not have been good for me. But on the flip side, I think that it was hard for me to figure out what was best for myself because I was so focused on what I was taught. And it took me a while to get out of that. And it kept me in certain relationships and situations that I really did not need to be in because I wanted to follow so deeply with what I was told in some of the advice that I had gotten from my parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely felt that because with the little friendly push that was given, I did have fears that my partner would not meet the exact standards that were expected or were told to me from my parents.
Agreed. So while the standards that they taught us were really helpful, in other ways was really restricting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to say the least. Yeah. Yeah, and now we're going to hear from you guys on what you think with marriage, dating, and your parents' input and the freedoms that you've had when it came to dating and choosing a partner.
So, of course, we know that there's a huge difference between people who were born and dated in the 1960s versus people who were born in the 2000s or early 90s, late 90s and dating now. So we're going to hear from you guys.
Mm-hmm. I didn't start dating until I joined the Guyana Police Force Band. On every Monday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we played in the bandstands. On Monday, the Promenade Gardens bandstand. On Thursdays, the Botanical Garden bandstand. On Saturdays, the Seawall bandstand. That's where I met a lot of young ladies. And apart from that, I went to a lot of parties on weekends, and that's where I met young ladies, and that's where I started dating. One of the wedding traditions I can remember is if you proposed to a young lady, you had to write her parents a letter asking for their approval to marry their daughter. I don't know if that tradition still stands today, but that's what we had to do in our time.
The essence of the relationships in the modern world, the dynamics have changed, and subsequently some of the old traditions that we may tend to resort to doesn't really hold water, but in many aspects there is some reflection in our lives in the way that we tend to do things. In several relationships I know of Guyanese parenthood, yes, they do have a say in choosing your wife. And, sometimes it can backfire because many have been taught or told to marry within race, and the now generation doesn't see that as something that they should conform to. So it does have an impact. I think going forward, it depends on character and should be based on love and dedication between two individuals and not be held back by the stereotype of, race, culture, creed. It is in my belief that the pretense of marriage has changed, where our parents' generation saw marriage as something for life. The now generation, and I'm generalizing even to those who have migrated abroad, have changed because marriage has not, and it does not take on the same pretense as our foreparents or our parents' generation, because it's seen as something much more casual where problems are not worked through. Instead, the easy solution is to say, right, I've had enough of that. And in my opinion, that is a breakdown in the family circle, breakdown in society, where it's not given the true respect that comes with the institution of marriage.
So our next episode on our podcast is about Guyanese relationships and marriages. So, any opinions? Any opinions?
Guyanese men toxic. Very toxic. Some is nice. If you want to lose weight, that
If you want to lose weight, if you want to lose weight, date a Guyanese man.
They love you, right? But they were hurt.
Do you want to shout out anyone, or you want to say any last words?
Miss Grippy.
All right, shout out Miss Grippy. Okay. Do you have any unpopular opinions or just opinions about Guyanese relationships in general? Guyanese marriages? Any opinions?
I think Guyanese relationship is good because we grow up with lots of love. And that's the most important thing.
That's right. A big thank you to those that we have interviewed for their feedback and their opinions and their reflections. It was really nice to hear thoughts from the different age groups. And you can tell how priorities and standards and expectations have evolved over time.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, a very mixed bag of opinions and experiences. Mm-hmm. And that's to be expected because Guyana is a very diverse place. And experiences in growing up overseas and in Guyana will impact that for sure. So
that is true.
Yeah. But yeah, like just to segue that into like the wedding that we just attended this week. It was our uncle's wedding, and as we mentioned before, people flew from near and far, all across the country of Guyana. There were people who came from Kokwani, Linden, as far as New Amsterdam, all the way to West Coast Berbice to celebrate this marriage. It was very beautiful. We held it in the same village that my uncle grew up in, at his mom's house, and it was lovely. Afia mentioned before that the colors were purple and yellow, which are very bright and beautiful colors. Caribbeans, we like our colors, our colorful houses, our colorful personality, our colorful music, our colorful food. And it was beautiful, very modern. A lot of white flowers, white decorations.
Even a white couch.
There was even a white couch, right? A white wall of flowers. Everything was so beautiful. The music was awesome. Our uncle loves to DJ, but he did hand it off for the night to someone else to handle that. So that was really, really nice.
Yeah, but he went right back to it at the end of the night.
He definitely did. He definitely did.
Just imagine the groom DJing.
Yeah, it was
you could
hilarious.
Visualize that.
Hilarious, we had some beautiful tents set up in the yard. People were shielded from the hot Guyana sun. It was really great seeing all these family members and, family members from the bride's side as well. We're not related to her, obviously. We are now related to her through marriage. But it was awesome getting to meet her family and, just hearing the different comments that people had to say about her, to learn more about her. We had delicious food also. Some of it was catered, but also a lot of it was made from the family. And I loved that because, as I mentioned before, you don't always get to experience that when you're in the States. Of course, we had to have the traditional black cake for wedding cake. And also there was a sponge cake because our uncle doesn't really like black cake. But that's controversial, but don't come at him. Don't come at him. Yeah. Sophia, what else was your favorite part?
Definitely my favorite part, I would say, is the group dancing. Everybody was getting up and dancing and everything. And yeah, it was nice mingling with the new extension of our family. And it was nice that everyone was in good spirits.
Definitely.
It was good vibes, people were drinking and stuff, but, that was expected. But it was good vibes all night.
Definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, it was awesome just because, the night before we had a Kwe-Kwe. And, so this is the second time that we're mingling and dancing and having fun with these new people, So,
exactly. And basically what a Kwe-Kwe is, it's an Afro-Guyanese tradition that occurs the night before the wedding. And it's just celebrating the bride and the groom. And, the elders are sharing their blessings and, we're singing folk songs, and it comes with the groom finding the bride. She hides around the house. Usually it's supposed to be the bride's house, but like we mentioned before, we are at our uncle's childhood home. So it was a little bit different, but we still managed to, still follow that tradition.
But yeah, as Sophia said, a Kwe-Kwe is an awesome Afro-Guyanese tradition. Guyana is a mixed country, but in this instance, we attended an Afro-Guyanese wedding, which was cool. So, of course, we can't end an episode without making sure that we're inclusive of our entire Guyanese community. We do want to share some of the wedding traditions of the different ethnic groups of Guyanese people. Of course, we want to emphasize that we're only sharing and capturing a few of these traditions. But if you feel like your experience or the experiences of your family were not included or represented, please be sure to share them with us. We always shout out our social media and our handle. It's G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H or at G.O.L.D.R.U.S.H. And in addition to that, you can also email us. The email address is goldrushgy.co@gmail.com. And we're happy to include and share a separate episode or a separate snippet of you guys' comments.
Yes, we would love to hear from you guys. So please reach out.
So as you guys know, Guyana is also known as the land of six peoples. And the reason that it came to be the land of six peoples were for different reasons. But yeah, we have six peoples in Guyana. The indigenous Guyanese, African Guyanese, East Indian Guyanese, Portuguese Guyanese, and Chinese Guyanese. We also have, a separate group that we call European Guyanese. I consider Portuguese as European because Portugal is in Europe. But for the sake of Guyana and us being the land of six people, Portuguese Guyanese and European Guyanese are separated into different groups. So, some different wedding traditions that we wanted to mention was, of course, in the Indo-Guyanese wedding tradition, mendi or henna being placed on the bride's hands and feet and being adorned with just beautiful designs. Afro-Guyanese tradition, as we mentioned before, many Afro-Guyanese couples or families have a Kwe-Kwe, which is a pre-wedding celebration that Afia mentioned. For Amerindian or indigenous Guyanese, there may be cultural performances, traditional songs and dances, which are really, really integral to indigenous culture in Guyana. And of course, it's showcased at weddings. And one more ethnic tradition that we wanted to share was just the symbolism of red. And often that is seen in Chinese Guyanese weddings or Chinese weddings in general, because the color red is considered lucky and is often incorporated into the couple's attire and decorations. So again, as we said before, we don't have information on every single ethnic group in Guyana and their wedding traditions, or every single wedding tradition in general that may be seen in Guyana. But if you feel like it was left out, please be sure to share them with us, and we will gladly include them in future episodes or in just a surprise bonus episode.
Yeah, and just on how Sherida touched up a little bit of the cultural traditions in Guyana, you also have more of religious traditions. And the more common religions in Guyana are Muslim, Hindu, and Christian. And with their wedding traditions, they're pretty similar. With the Muslim weddings in Guyana, and again, this is from what I've been told from my friends who are in this religion. Again, if you do have any comments or corrections, please let us know, because we do want to be fully educated. But with the Muslim religion, the bride and groom, they're often traditionally covered. In Hindu weddings, they kind of have something similar to Afro-Guyanese weddings, where they have a pre-wedding cleansing the night before, then they have their wedding ceremony, the reception, and then the post-wedding gathering and party at the bride's home the next day. With Christian Guyanese weddings, there's usually the priest or the minister. The bride and the groom are dressed in their usual white, and it's often held at a church, but sometimes it's held at different locations. But all in all, with all three of these religions, the common theme here is two hearts, two souls are coming together, and two families.
Yeah. So to summarize everything that we discussed in this episode, there has been a lot of change in the landscape of dating and relationships that we have seen globally, as people, as Guyanese living overseas, but as well as in, the commentary of our friends and family still living in Guyana. Mm-hmm. And we really, really want to encourage you all to continue to learn from your relatives, your Guyanese friends and your Guyanese family, and ask them about how dating was for them. And maybe you might learn something from them. Maybe you just might get an interesting story out of them. But I do think it's really important that we continue to have these conversations with the different generations and the different people around us, especially in our communities, so that, for one, we can retain dating traditions that we value or are interested in, and two, so that we can hear and pass down these stories, because they won't be here forever.
And we encourage you guys to reflect on your experiences and contribute to this conversation, whether you're asking your family members or you're just thinking to yourself or you're talking with friends. It's just something to think about.
Yeah. So with that, we're definitely going to sign off. This has been a great episode, and we'll be back with another one, as we mentioned. So our monthly episodes are going smoothly right now, and really excited about it. So we'll see you guys next month.
All right, stay tuned for the next episode. Okay. And we're going to GYaff later.
We're going to GYaff, right?
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.